Hey guys, D.Bowie here, and this is 5k CM versus 7.5k CM. Considering starting items, I feel like both players did pretty well. The 5k CM has another support and there's enough gold for her to buy a Windlace. Considering she is against very high move speed heroes, Abaddon, Legion and Monkey King, I agree with the item decisions. Fly in this game had to go for a more selfless build since Bounty has to buy Orb of Venom at level 1, and usually when you have a roamer in your team, you really need to step up your support game. The 7.5k MMR CM goes for a very early TP in the shrine, with no smoke since Fly had no gold, and places an early observe ward in that jungle area. If you pay attention to the dire heroes, there is no shadow of a doubt that one of them will be farming there, and with that ward alone, I feel like the 7k CM was way more superior than the other one. The early game TPs, especially now that the shrines were added, are something that supports below 5k rarely use. If they use, they have a hard time actually utilizing the vision to punish junglers or to gank with the vision they acquired. Talking about the early laning phase, we can see that Fly already postures himself in a way to tank the range creep. The offlane loves to send the range creep first because then the creep wave is more likely to push towards his tower. As a support, it's your duty to tank the enemy creep wave while your carry blocks your minions. Anyways, it feels like CM actually deceived there, but I can't give her a higher rating since she didn't block the range creep. In regards to stacking and pulling, I like that Fly was able to harass the enemy offlaner and connect the stack perfectly, showing how experienced he is in doing stuff like that. The 5k CM went straight to the camp, and part of that was because Abaddon was actually hidden, but you can't deny that Fly accomplished more without hindering his potential in the game. Even though I like that Fly went for Crystal Nova to allow Ursa to get more hits on Magnus or to easily force a skewer, he can't farm the jungle as greedy as the 5k CM is doing now. Pay attention how he pulls the creep wave towards the Bounty rune spot so that Abaddon doesn't get free experience because he's standing close to it. I like that the 5k CM focused the big creeps and even got a cool rotation at the 2-minute mark to get a bounty. But was it worth it? Abaddon is level 3 now, and his weakest point is definitely at level 1. Weaver can farm okay against an Abaddon, but that doesn't mean it's okay to give him free farm, so I don't really like it. The 7k MMR player gave way more focus in harassing the offlaner, in this case Magnus. Ursa is in the same spot that Weaver was. He can definitely farm okay against a Magnus. It's the same situation actually, but we see a very different change of focus. Since Fly is in the Radiant side, I like that he goes for the Bounty rune but checks the standard rune as well as he performs a double pull before going, since the lane was pushed towards Magnus after all. In the end, there's a clear difference in levels between the 7k player and the 5k player, but since the offlaner spent selves and overall the 7k player gave the offlaner a harder time, it's something I feel like a lot of people underrate in higher MMRs. I like that the 5k MMR CM tried her best to use rotations to help mid. 2 kills were acquired thanks to it. At the same time, since Fly died once, he had no TPs to use in the first minutes, but he makes a pretty cool play. Some people forget you can deny allies affected by stuff like Doom, Gale and Corpse Dagger, especially since no one plays those heroes anyways. Fly played a hard support. He only started farming that camp at 6 minutes even though he stacked it way before, and even after dying he bought the wards before going boots. Still, you can see the difference between Darkseer and Magnus in net worth, as well as how high Ursa is in net worth, mainly because Fly playing like that enabled Ursa way more than if he traded farm with Magnus while Fly jungled. Another point I don't like about the 5k MMR player is that he's jungling against a Monkey King. He can be very dangerous, he can leech experience, gank her after Frostbite is spent, and all that jazz. The reason the 5k CM was able to pull it off is the fact that Radiant had a jungler as well, but more often than not it can be underwhelming to trade jungle farm as a CM when you're playing against greedier junglers like Legion, Enigma and X, since they will make make way more use of that farm at around 15 minutes into the game than you will. The fact that Fly played like that and only kept pressuring Magnus also goes back to how strong Magnus is right now, as well as how he synergizes greatly with the rest of the draft. PA and Juggernaut will be ridiculously strong if Magnus gets huge, and trading farm, since Ursa can get less hits regardless, is not going to solve the mid and late game problems. They even get a kill at the 7-minute mark, while just a little bit before he was stacking the creeps. And now that Magnus is afraid of staying in the lane, he starts jungling a little bit. We can see a pretty big difference between TP rotations. In Fly's game, he TPs out of vision, setting up for more allies to help him. Beoni was closing in, and only after the next TP was committed, he starts using his skills. He's still out of vision. They end up killing Magnus and getting track gold. In the 5k MMR game, he TPs in to help Tidehunter. He goes for an obvious TP in front of the enemy heroes, having the follow-up of a Tinker, meaning no slows or stuns. They lose a bunch of time with a lot of different heroes, accomplishing nothing. A pretty bad decision in my opinion. I did complain about the decision making of the 5k CM before, but he didn't AFK farm in the jungle, and I like that. He goes for Midas eventually, and this is one of the only items that can help CM scale a little bit in the mid-late game. In a game against so many cores, it can be a good item if you're not sacrificing your allies while you farm it. I like that he goes Tranquils, Windlace and Magic Stick to be able to roam and get kills, while also saving for the big item later. I don't feel like Midas would be a bad item in Fly's game, but he had played too selfless to start going for Midas right now. They have a Bounty Hunter, meaning that building fighting items and trying to get kills could give him reasonable amounts of gold, while getting the early advantage CM is good at. And maybe, if he gets tons of kills, even finishing Midas later if he gets the gold to it. So I really like the Magic Wand pickup before actually going for the Midas. A lot of support players tend to die when they ward because they don't choose the right times for that, like using a smoke and warding as the fight starts or as the fight ends. In Fly's game, he uses this fight going in the mid lane to ward that cliff in the jungle. Considering the top tier 1 already fell down, this is a pretty good ward that can be useful when they go for the tier 2, as well as help Tinker as he split pushes that area. The 5k player on the other hand only bought one obs at the 0-minute mark and took a long time to buy another one. He tries to go for a ward adventure when he buys one, and look what happens. I can say it's a very clear difference between the 7k CM and this one. They even use that ward that Fly planted to get a kill on Magnus. Even though they die, you can see that Magnus has pretty much CM's net worth, while all the Radiant heroes are on the top of the net worth chart, so that's pretty okay. Even though the 5k Crystal Maiden got an early Midas and was greedier at 15 minutes into the game, Fly has actually more levels, even though he died 3 times more. I feel like Fly used Crystal Maiden's early power spike way better than the other Crystal Maiden. And then he farmed Midas after he was finished abusing that. Since this is a 5k Crystal Maiden, they both played fairly well, but we could see how attention to detail, experience, and overall crispy gameplay made Fly the better one. Well, this wraps up for today. If you enjoyed this video, please guys give it a thumbs up. Pugna is a platform where you can learn from people like Chessie, Fogged, Waga and Munib and get better at the game. If you want to raise your MMR, this is a great time. They have great content on the new patch, so just tune in and start learning with me.